If you've already broken up 5 arguments before breakfast and it's only Tuesday, you are not alone. Sibling fights feel louder in the summer. And when you're working and juggling everything else, it can be a lot. Welcome to Reclaim and Reset with Luna, where we help busy, overwhelmed women shift from burnout and survival mode to a life that feels like your own again, with simple tools that make change actually stick. So let's be honest, summer can be a beautiful season for connection, but it can also be a lot. No school, no breaks, long days, and kids who are constantly together. Sounds magical in theory. In practice, it's a recipe for sibling bickering, dramatic sighs, slammed doors, and a mom on the brink. If your kids are fighting over whose sock is on whose side of the couch, or why someone ate the last granola bar, and you find yourself yelling, "Everyone to a different room!" more than you'd like to admit, you're not failing. You are living with small humans who are together too much without the usual structure that gives everybody a break. And here's the kicker, you still have to work. You still have a mental load the size of Costco, and your nervous system wasn't designed for this level of noise and conflict every day. That's what today's episode is about. Practical ways to handle sibling fights during summer break without losing your cool or dreading every hour until bedtime. And be sure to stick around for point number 4, because it's the one that finally gave me a breather without adding another thing to my to-do list. So let's dive in. Number 1 is understand what's really going on beneath that bickering. When kids fight, it's tempting to see it as bad behavior, that they're just being little brats. But most of the time, their arguing isn't really about what they're fighting over. It's about boredom, it's about boundary testing, it's about overstimulation, and sometimes the need for connection or even space. During the school year, your kids are apart for a good chunk of the day. They each have their own space, their own structure, and their own social outlets. But in summer, that disappears. Suddenly, they're up in each other's space 24/7, trying to figure out how to coexist, and they don't have the emotional regulation tools that adults mostly do. Add in the heat, sugar, screens, and the constant togetherness, and it becomes a pressure cooker. What's important here is to stop thinking of sibling fights as something you have to fix or eliminate entirely. Conflict is part of learning social skills, but what you can do is lower the temperature, both literally and emotionally, by helping them name what they're feeling and creating small opportunities for them to separate, recharge, or reset. So for example, when my daughters were in a constant state of nitpicking last July, I realized it always spiked after lunch, when they were hot, when they were tired, and when it was screen-free time. Just naming that helped us plan a short reset block in the afternoon. It didn't stop the bickering completely, but it made it less constant, and it gave me a little window to breathe. So coming up next in this video, I'll share how I build mini breaks into the day that feel like a reset for everyone, even if we're all still in the same house. Okay, so number 2 is to build in that separate corners time before the meltdowns actually start. So you know how you can feel it brewing before it explodes? It's that subtle shift in tone, or the way one kid starts poking at the other just for fun, or how the volume starts creeping up with no clear reason. That's your cue. One of the best things I've learned is the power of preemptive separation, not as punishment, but as proactive space. I call it separate corners time. It's not a timeout. It's not isolating. It's space where each kid gets to be alone for just a little bit. And now we usually do this after lunch, but before screen time kicks back in, because that is the fussiest window where they're most likely to really get on each other's nerves. So here's how it looks in our house. One kid might go outside to draw with sidewalk chalk, while the other one listens to music with headphones on while drawing at the kitchen table. And then I take 15 minutes in my room with a fan and silence. Nobody talks, nobody negotiates. It's not a free-for-all, but it's not rigid either. They get to each pick the activity that they want to do by themselves. This isn't about perfect scheduling. It's about breaking up that friction before it boils over. And if you work from home like I do this summer, it is a great time to answer emails or reset your brain before that afternoon chaos kicks in again. And it's totally okay to make this part of your family rhythm. You can even call it a quiet hour or solo time. It doesn't have to be an emergency measure. It doesn't have to be what we do when we shove them in their separate corners after the fight. It can be a built-in strategy that prevents the burnout for everybody. And speaking of burnout, that brings me to point number 3, because we need to talk about how your energy levels are part of this equation too. So number 3 is when you're touched out, talked out, and overstimulated, how do we handle that? So let's talk about the part that nobody really talks about online, and that is you. You're not just breaking up arguments and managing the logistics. You're doing it while you're trying to work, to keep the house semi-functional and remembering to drink your water. And when the noise is constant and someone always needs something from you, it is exhausting. And that's why your regulation matters just as much as your kids. Because when you're overstimulated, your nervous system is shot and you haven't had a quiet thought in 2 days, it can really be hard to stay calm when the kids start bickering. You end up snapping, yelling, or maybe checking out entirely. I've done all 3, some all in one afternoon. And this is where micro resets for you come in. I'm not talking about full spa days or disappearing to Target for 2 hours, though that does sound amazing some days. I mean tiny, intentional pauses where you decompress. Try this. The next time you feel your tension rising, excuse yourself to the bathroom and do 1 minute of box breathing. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and then hold again for 4. And repeat this a couple of times. Or sit outside for 3 minutes and just stare at a tree or your garden or the grass or something. I'm not kidding. Visual stillness helps your brain regulate because you are the emotional anchor of the house. This doesn't mean that you need to be perfect, but it means you need to give yourself permission to reset too. And coming up in point number 4, I'll share the shift that made the biggest difference in our house last summer, and it had nothing to do with creating more rules. Are you ready? Okay. Tip number 4 is to create a shared family reset ritual. So last summer, after a particularly loud Saturday afternoon, which was complete with a slammed bedroom door and someone yelling, "You're not my boss," I realized that we didn't need more rules. We needed reset rituals. So I sat the kids down and I said, I know we're all getting on each other's nerves. That's normal. But we need a way to reset before it turns into a battle. And then together, we came up with what we now call our family reboot. And it's not fancy. Sometimes it's 10 minutes of music and dancing. Sometimes it's turning off the lights and lying on the floor and listening to a calming story or music. Other times it's a snack break with 0 conversation. Sometimes it's everyone going off to read for 10 minutes on their own. The magic isn't what you do, it's in the shared pause. So why does this matter? Because teaching kids that conflict isn't always fixed with punishment or lectures, that it can be diffused with intention, it gives them tools to regulate themselves, and it gives you permission to do the same. This doesn't have to be every day, but when you're feeling the chaos building, maybe right before dinner or after everyone's been home too long, then offer this up, right? Say, let's reboot. No blame, no drama, just space for everyone. This is a way that we can model emotional self-care without preaching to our kids all the time. And honestly, it's made our home feel a lot calmer, even on our most chaotic days. Again, not perfect, but more peaceful. Okay, so I will leave you with these thoughts today. Summer togetherness is a gift and a pressure cooker. If your kids are driving each other and you up the wall, you are not doing anything wrong here. This is normal. This is life when people are growing and learning and stretching boundaries all under one roof together all the time. But you don't have to survive it with gritted teeth. You can build in space, both literal and emotional. You can notice the signs before the blow-ups. You can anchor your own nervous system so that you don't always lose it when they do. And you can introduce little rituals that help your whole family breathe again. You're not alone in this. You're not failing. And you don't have to wait until September when the kids go back to school to feel sane again. If this video spoke to you, do me a favor, comment below with one way your kids are driving each other nuts right now. Let's laugh about it together. I'll go first, so check out my comment below. And as always, remember, you've got this. Keep showing up for you, and I will see you in the next video.